Minecraft just added some new farmable items, and as you guys know, I'm on a challenging quest to design an automatic farm for every single item in the game of Minecraft. I'm very close to completing this goal, but with these new items means I need to design some new farms. Hello there, Ray here. Let's first take a look at the Eyeblossom farm, and then we'll take a look at this new resin farm. Now the Eyeblossom farm is actually quite easy to do. All you have to do is take my simple flower farm that I showed here and build it up in a pale garden biome. Since in that biome, whenever the dispenser underneath will come up and bone mill the grass block that is above it, it will then put in not only grass short and tall, but it also will put in the new type of flower, which is this special Eyeblossom flower. Now when you run this farm in the daytime, the flower is going to stay closed and will look like this, but once it turns nighttime, it will then automatically spawn in the open variation of the flower, which does have a unique look. Now you can use these for decoration, just keep in mind they will automatically open and close depending on if it's daytime or nighttime, but they will be slightly delayed in changing states. But the flowers can also be crafted down into dye. The closed variation will give you gray dye, where the open one will give you orange dye. And if we go ahead and check out our farm, you can see we're getting all the items collected into the hoppers here, where we already got a few stacks of the closed ones and we're getting a few stacks of the open ones now. Encourage me to make more automatic farms by clicking that like button. If anything changes about these flowers or the farm in the future, make sure to check the description for the latest updates. Now resin is a really useful block as you can instant break it when placing it down, and it doesn't have any of the slowness properties of honey or slime. It is also not dangerous to use like TNT around redstone, so you can easily use this to stack when you're building and then break it down. You don't even have to worry about recollecting it, as this farm will produce tons of it. Besides that, it also looks really cool when adding it to other blocks to give it unique texture, and you can also smelt it down to bricks, which can be crafted into a variety of different cool building blocks. So now let's take a look at how I made an OP farm for the resin clumps. It works as soon as it turns nighttime, the creakings can spawn in. Now this is because underneath of the farm we have the combination of the creaking heart, which is sitting in between two of the pale oak logs. And with this combination, it will summon in creakings if it is night, but in order for them to spawn in, there has to be a full square block that is at the top of its edge, as within 16 blocks of where the creaking heart is. And since we have these lovely spawning platforms all along here, we can get these guys to spawn in relatively quickly. On top of this, we have slabs. These are bottom slabs and they cannot spawn on top of these. But if you had a top slab, they can spawn on top of those. So after the creaking has spawned in, now they're just kind of sitting in here. Now what we have is some water that is washing them towards the center, but it doesn't seem like they're going down in the center very well. Now this is because I'm not down here. Typically the player would be AFKing down here, and when you're down here, what happens is that the creakings can detect that you're looking towards them, and then they will freeze. Now when they freeze, they're no longer able to fight against the water, and they're no longer able to push each other. So notice they can easily stack. And we can see this up on top as well. Notice how they're all bouncing around, but as soon as they go into survival mode, they will just easily get pushed by the water, and they will get pushed into the center. Wait, you're still watching? Well, you must like Minecraft, so hit that subscribe button. Now the reason why we have them coming to the center is because in order to produce resin, the creakings need to be hit by player means. So by pushing them all here, we got easy spot where we can use a sword, and the swords have the sweeping attack, so even though I hit one, it'll hit them all at the exact same time. And we can use any player method, so I can illustrate this with the potion of harming as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit them right as the water vanishes. What this does is you can see it will spawn in the resin. The way the resin spawns in is that when there is a creaking heart, it will spawn resin one block away from it. That means this creaking heart can spawn resin on this side as well as this side. It cannot spawn them on other blocks. It has to be the pale oak logs. And every creaking heart will produce between 2 and 3 resin. So this creaking heart can spawn resin on those two sides, but on this side it can also spawn resin on these two sides. So it has a total of 4 areas it can place in resin, and that way it will always have an area to actually place it in. And then what we do is we tile this across, and we're actually sharing this log right here for either side. So we're using less logs in order to summon the creaking, and we're also having logs on the side. That way we can have resin produced on 3 sides, which makes it a lot easier to collect it. Now, one thing that is different from Bedrock Edition from Java Edition is that in Bedrock Edition, the resin will actually hold back water, where in Java, it gets washed away by the water. So after noticing this, I thought this is going to be much easier to design a farm using water to wash it, rather than using pistons to move the logs like in my Bedrock Edition design. So since we have a total of 8 of these creaking hearts, each of them producing an average of 2.5 resin, and we have 4 of them stacked over here, and we have this whole entire farm mirrored on this side over here. That makes a total of 64 creaking hearts, which will produce around 160 resin every single time. But how often you can actually damage these creakings is limited, as you can only get the resin to be produced every 5 seconds. So what you would want to do is AFK down here, and then have an auto clicker that will click every 5 seconds. But sometimes you'll have to adjust the timing if your auto clicker has a little bit of delay every time it clicks. Now I also put a trapdoor to the side of this. This will be used as an indicator to know when to start the timer. So as soon as it will flip downwards, this is when you're going to start your auto clicker. And now every 5 seconds, it will attack the creakings, which will produce resin. So not only do you click every 5 seconds, but we also have a timer which is washing away the water every 5 seconds. I decided to use a cheap comparator clock with a little bit of delay, and this is exactly 100 game ticks or 5 seconds. Every time this torch flicks on, it's going to come over here and activate this torch over here, which is going to release the water. Notice that we want the water to just barely be able to sweep to the end. That way over time it will eventually wash the items. And we want to attack the creakings right as the water is vanished. That way we can get it to actually spawn in, as if you would attack them when there's water, it's not going to produce any resin because it won't replace the water. It needs to have air there. So it is important to time your attacks. But if you run this on a server, it's possible that the lag of the server actually slows down the game, so that even though you're clicking every 5 seconds, the game ends up taking longer to process those 100 game ticks, and therefore you end up clicking faster than what the game can actually accept. So you might want to tweak your clicking and timing, make it a little bit slower in order to keep up the ticks per second of the server. Now also, this timing is set to exactly 5 seconds, but it's probably actually better to run this a little bit slower. That way you're guaranteed to actually get resin every time, because it's unlikely that you're going to click exactly every 5 seconds, and if you don't click exactly, you are going to miss out on some resin. But you can see that the water is not only used to move the creakings into the killing chamber, but I use the exact same water to move the resin into the collection area. So all the items go down the same hole as the creakings do, and then they're going to fall into this water stream down here, and it's too wide because it produces around 2,000 items per minute, or around 115,000 items per hour, which means we need around 14 hoppers in order to keep up with it. Items are then being picked up by both of these hoppers here and are being pushed into these crafters. Since it's so many items per hour, I decided to just automatically craft them into blocks, as this is an easy way to store them. Similar to slime balls being converted into slime blocks, you can convert these back in order to get the resin clumps if you need those. Then all those blocks are being dropped out automatically with another clock over here, and then they're getting picked up and stored in the chest. And when it comes to stacks of blocks, this farm produces 200 stacks of these resin blocks per hour, which is just insane. Overall, the design is actually quite simple for how insane it is at producing items per hour. But as soon as it turns daytime, you'll see the creaking will completely vanish, so you can only run this farm during the nighttime. And since there's no way to skip the daytime, unlike beds which can skip the nighttime, there's no way to keep this farm continuously working, so you end up getting half the rates. But I did make sure to design this so that it will automatically fill the creakings back into the chamber again and restart the farm all up if you're just AFK down here. So you don't need to have a separate system to collect the creakings and a separate system to collect the resin. It's all compacted into one, so you can just easily AFK over the daytime, and as soon as night comes, you can automatically will start the farm back up again. Now eventually we'll be doing a tutorial video on this build here if it continues to work once the full release is out. It's possible some things will change with this design, so make sure to check the description for the newest version. Now see how I made an automatic farm from beacons to dragon and so much more by clicking this playlist here. Become a sponsor of this channel by joining as a YouTube member and getting your name here at the end. Thanks everybody who's been supporting me each and every month, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye bye!